Okay, so today's message is an important one, and that's an interesting one because a lot of you could take something from it, regardless of whether you've had a bowel condition or had an ileostomy or any type of ostomy or ulcerative colitis or Crohn's or a J pouch. You don't have to have had any of those things to take something from this particular video. So anyone from any walk of life could probably take this on board because it does really apply to everyone. And it's a video about how we can flip meanings around, how we can reframe things to think of it in a much more sort of positive way. And that's something that I've been doing for a long time now. I wrote about this. I actually kind of dedicated a whole chapter to this in my book, World Class Happiness, that's available on Amazon. Now, it's really important because when we're in a situation where we've got a kind of health issue, you have to be able to do that all the time. Okay, now I followed somebody 2 or 3 days ago on Instagram who I really liked. Thought, you know, they come across really well. They had a fair few followers, and they also had conditions like myself and similar to many of us. Had, you know, a bowel condition, and then had an ostomy or ostomies possibly, I can't remember, and then had a J pouch which then failed and had all sorts of problems. But this person come across really well, really positive, you know, was a very inspiring person. So I was following this person and come across one of their videos. It's a lady, and she started talking in this one video, and it kind of really hit home to me because it was a video about how somebody had approached her because she's like this really inspiring lady. She speaks on stage and all this and that. And then this lady came up to her and said how she was really inspired by this woman and how she felt much better about her conditions and her problems because they weren't as bad as the lady in question, and how kind of, you know, it made her feel much better because she knew that she didn't have to cope with as much as this lady. Now, the lady in question obviously felt happy that she'd inspired this woman and felt happy that she had helped this woman feel better, but also felt really quite bad and quite sad because, you know, she was on the wrong end of it. She was being told that I only feel good because you are in a much worse position than me, and that didn't make her feel good at all. And she kind of was saying this on her video as if, like, you know, that this is a situation that people like us are in, and you know, I can kind of relate to this in some ways. But what I would like to say to this lady and anyone who has any sort of similar issue like this is that you just have to look the opposite way as well. Meaning that there'll always be somebody, whether it be with that particular condition or not, there'll always be somebody who is in a worse position than what you're in. So it doesn't really matter how bad your condition is, how bad your situation is. You know, it doesn't even have to be a health issue. It could be anything, any sort of bad situation that you might find yourself in. There'll always be somebody out there that you could find who is in a much worse situation than you. And if people are doing that with you, you could probably then get inspired by somebody else who is in a worse position than you, who seemingly seems to be doing well, who seems to be coping well, who seems to be getting on with it. And it doesn't mean then you necessarily have to contact that person and say the same thing and make them feel bad, but you can take inspiration from somebody who is in a worse situation than you and seems to be coping better than you. And, you know, you can be in any situation and feel good or bad about it. You know, a millionaire can feel hard done by if they're looking towards the direction of a billionaire. You know, it's the same with anything. And if you're in poor health, then you can always feel better about yourself by looking at somebody who's in a worse position. You know, so that's really what we need to do. Not just look for people who are having a bad time and kind of, you know, feel happy that they're having a bad time, but kind of feeling grateful that we're in a position where it could be worse, and at least we've got this, or at least we've got that, and we can still do this. So that's really how we need to think you know, no matter what the situation, we need to try to find the positive in it. Realize that there's people in a much worse position who are probably coping better than what you are now, and try and take the positives from that and try and look at what they do. But you've also got to realize that it doesn't matter who you are or who they are or who anybody is, really. Everyone has their struggles. You know, it doesn't matter how good somebody's life may seem, everyone has their struggles. You know, nobody gets away with an easy life. It doesn't matter if you seem to have everything and you have, you know, all the things that people generally want. You'll always find that they're struggling with something. You can think of anyone on the planet right now, people who you're close to, people who you know, well-known people, celebrities, whatever. You could think of virtually anyone, and you could probably pick out something that they've struggled with in their time, something that they've had to cope with, whether it be a death, whether it had to be a health issue, whether it has to be a money situation, you know, whether it be something to do with their children. You know, that people always have their struggles, you know, and we might even look at people who seem to just have everything and be given everything, people who just sit on their bum and, you know, and don't do anything, and they get everything given to them, and they seem to get away with everything, and we might resent that a little bit. But then we've got to think to ourselves, well, those people probably in their alone time probably don't feel very good about themselves, and probably, you know, they might have their own health issues because they're not getting up and doing stuff, and they may have mental health issues and stuff. So on the surface, when people seem like they're having an easy ride, they're probably not. And you know, we've got to see that in ourselves as well. We've got to realize that no matter what happens, we're always going to have our struggles. We're always going to have our struggles, and this just is our struggle. This health situation, this, you know, condition with our bowels is our situation. Somebody might have issues with cancer. Somebody might have issues with their kids' health. Somebody might have issues with their finances, and some people might have issues with their work situation or their relationships. And people will always have their struggles. This is our struggle. And like I say, no one gets off scot-free. So this is what we have to cope with, and we need to look to people who are coping with a situation similar to us and doing it better. Or if you can't find anyone because you're the worst of the people in that situation, then there's going to be people in a worse situation that you can find in a different situation, where you'd think to yourself, well, I'd much rather be here than there, and much rather be me than them. And you've got to look at it in that way. So that's my message today, really. No matter what the situation, it doesn't matter if it's a health situation like many of us are in. It could be any situation. We need to try and look at the positive. We need to try and flip the meaning, reframe the situation, reframe it into a positive, and we'll always find that we start to feel happier and more relaxed about something. And like I say, nothing's ever going to go smoothly. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. So kind of embrace the fact that this is our thing, and this is actually something that we can cope with, and this is something we can live a pretty normal life with if we work it out. If we work it out, and if we kind of take it for what it is, and we don't wallow in our, you know, we don't want to be victims. We just get on and we do what we can do, and that's the way to cope with it. So that's my message today. I'm going to leave the video there. I'm Dominic, the ostomy coach, and I'm hoping to make you another video very soon. Thanks, guys.